Westholme Tea Company was founded by Margit Nelleman, a ceramicist and tea blender, and Victor Vesely, the tea grower and maker. It's an 11-acre estate and shop located on Vancouver Island, 35 minutes south of Nanaimo. Westholme is the first commercial and possibly only tea estate in Canada. It's another example of the mixed agriculture and artisanal nature of the Cowichan Valley, and of a couple looking to create a lifestyle centered around slow living, something that the Valley has officially embraced by being the first member of the Italian-based Cheetah Slow movement. What's interesting are the many parallels between tea and wine growing. Victor begins by telling us how it all started.
The vision essentially was to find a place for Margit to create her ceramic work and for a ideal setting and lifestyle around food and quality of life. And so we came to create tea, food, and art. The tea initially wasn't tea Camellia sinensis that's growing on the slopes right now, but we had flowers and herbs and started as a lavender farm. Of course, the art was Margit's ceramics. We shifted then to planting tea in 2010 and became Tea Farm. And then in 2016, we developed the concept of Westholme Tea Company to give our Canadian tea a sense of place and origin. And it has evolved with visitors from all around the globe, as well as folks locally who are finding us as their source for everyday tea.
The switch to focus on tea actually began with Margit's love of making teapots and a love for tea she has developed over years.
Teapots in ceramics is one of the more challenging pieces to create, so I wanted to be able to make teapots, and then it was a bit of a kind of natural evolution with the land here, seeing that it was south-facing slopes. Victor mentioned we tried different crops first, and then really go, why don't we try tea?
So why not tea? It's well known that traditional tea-growing regions are China, India, and Sri Lanka. Kenya, Indonesia, and Japan are the other serious tea regions, and they are all within a band between 42 degrees north and 33 degrees south latitude. These are tropical or subtropical climates where monsoons provide the copious amounts of water the tea bushes like, but also the dry periods needed for harvest. Many plantations in India and Sri Lanka grow their tea at 8,000 feet or higher. Westholme is at sea level, but sometimes the impossible is made possible by simply giving it a go.
First, it was just a risk. It was just, let's put it in the ground, let's see how we're doing this. I'm self-taught in tea growing and in tea making, so the idea was, let's see how we go. A certain amount of research went into it, but a lot of it was just, let's see if they take. And then they did. We had some first harsh winter of -15. So some of the plants were covered because we can't lose all the plants. Then you discovered when the snow came, it crushed some of the plants, and the ones that weren't covered were insulated by the snow. So learnings right off the bat. So it was more of a risk-taking, but also would it take, and it has over the last 12 plus years.
And I think with climate change, a lot of farming is an experiment these days.
The bushes are not the core part of the business. Instead, tea lovers are drawn to the sophisticated cross-section of their imported teas. Wine lovers will note similarities. Single estate teas are selected for their specific terroir. Echoes of Sauterne or ice wine can be heard in the descriptions for frost teas or second flush teas harvested at different times of the year and priced for their delicate, more complex flavors. Margit, a trained chef, blends some of the teas and herbs, naming them for local places. She and Victor explain.
We bring in certified organic ingredients. We do create tisanes, so herbal infusions. And then we bring in pure teas from really all the traditional tea growing regions of the world, really using high quality teas so that the flavor is important.
What makes our company unique, and there's very few people who don't use synthetic flavorings and essences, and we also don't bag our tea, so we're one of the few companies that is purely loose leaf, so that people can see that it's an agricultural product. There's a beauty in the shaping and the sculpturing of the leafing, that the individual can choose how much they want to have, little or how less.
Victor and Margit's attention to an undoctored product, organic inputs, and concern over presentation and art easily reminds one of a winery visit. Similarly, the pair have adjusted their business model to be more interactive with visitors.
So we used to have more of a tea room experience with a menu and so forth, and people would come on a regular basis. Now we've designed more of a curated and educational, experiential, reserved experience. So our Sunday tea tours of the garden include a walkthrough of the garden with me as tea maker, an introduction to ceramics and the tea history experience, and then a taste of Canadian tea compared to a tea that would be from a different region. So it's a really immersion in actually sitting in the tea garden, seeing where the tea is grown, tasting it only a few steps away, but also still having a great relationship with the other tea growing regions and understanding tea in the broader context.
Many people may think like tea is, I've tried only one orange pekoe style of tea and don't realize that everything comes from the same plant. Be it a black tea, a green tea, a white tea, an oolong or pu'er, that's all from the same plant. So we kind of explore a little bit what tea is.
Margit's ceramics offer another dimension to explore.
I bring it to people's attention, the relationship between the vessel and the tea. So tea has an ancient history that goes back like 5,000 years plus, and in order to enjoy tea you must have a vessel, and they've always gone hand in hand. They've kind of evolved alongside each other, so that certain styles of tea, or in China certain emperors had a certain preference for a specific style of cup. So I create all of those, but it really fascinates me how the two depend on one another.
Victor and Margit continue to move forward, and they tell us about their plans for the future.
Well, we've acquired the property next door, and ideally our longer-term vision is to plant another 1,000 plants. So currently have 800 tea plants, which doesn't provide a huge volume of tea, but again, very refined, very sort of, again, a rare crop, being the only producer of rare terroir tea in Canada. And we want to broaden it to diversify a little bit the cultivars and the types of tea, so creating different flavor profiles from different teas, but then making it even more educational, and essentially then broadening into having, there's a whole culinary aspect of fresh tea leaves. So no one has fresh tea, and there are different cultures in Vietnam will put hot water on fresh tea leaves. So there's different ways of approaching it, as well as a whole culinary aspect, which we want to at some point a little bit later integrate.
Westholme is an oasis and perhaps a great stop to include before or after a wine tasting or exploring the region. As for the tea, we hope that they endure. Westholme is not a large producer by any means, but they offer an opportunity for people to taste the tea fresh, not shipped halfway across the world.